It's getting harder and harder to track exactly what's going on with all of these lawsuits in the post-election legal battle. But last night at 11 p.m., we got serious breaking news. Republicans scored a massive victory with their lawsuit to find Act 77 in PA, mail-in voting, unconstitutional. Not only did the judge say that their previous rulings putting an injunction on certification was appropriately ordered, they said, it seems that the petitioners, the GOP, the Republicans filing suit, have a legitimate claim and will likely win on the merits when they say mail-in voting in Pennsylvania violated the Constitution. This is downright crazy because the defendants on this case are the Pennsylvania Republican legislature, the Secretary of the State, and I believe the governor. And they're being sued by other Republicans. So it's all very weird. But this is happening when we were also hearing just the other day that a state senator in Pennsylvania said they're going to file a joint resolution, which I have the preliminary write-up, arguing that they should get the power back to appoint electors. Do you know what this means? It's all very strange. It's kind of freaky. It means the Republicans in Pennsylvania, they passed a law. It's called Act 77 that expanded mail-in voting. In fact, they began the process to enact a constitutional amendment to the Pennsylvania Constitution in order to do so, but abruptly stopped that process. The law was then passed, and then it got signed off on by the governor. That says to me, at least, and I think any reasonable person, they knew the law they were passing was unconstitutional. That's why they stopped, because they were like, it's going to take too long. And if they wanted to do an amendment, it had to appear on the ballot, meaning there would be no mail-in ballots this time. It would be for next time. So they likely, in my opinion, what they did was they stopped the constitutional amendment process, knowing if we want mail-in votes now, we have to do it now and bypass the Constitution. Well, a judge said no. Here's where it gets crazy. In 2016, Pennsylvania certified their results in the presidential election on December 12th, like just before the Electoral College was supposed to vote, a little bit before. Today, in this election, they seemingly just rushed it through while there was ongoing litigation. I think that kind of, well, let's just say the judge is mildly perturbed by the idea that they were in the middle of litigating a case that was filed days before, and then the governor rushes through certification and then says, oh, we certified? The lawsuit is pointless. And the judge said, nah. There's two things here. First, they only claimed to have certified the president and vice presidential elections, nothing else. The judge says, I'm not even sure you can certify in piecemeal. You got to do the whole thing. You can't just run out and say you did it. More importantly, they said there's no officiation. There's no official process by which they actually did this, meaning they said they did. They went over everything. But where is the actual certified official stamped document done? I don't know the full details on how they get to that point, but the judge says, I don't see it. Therefore, we stop you now. And I believe, I could be wrong, we'll read through this. I believe they're even saying you cannot appoint electors so long as this injunction stands. Well, this injunction got issued, I believe it was on the 25th, and then there was an emergency appeal that overturned the injunction. And now the judge says, nah. No, I was right in my initial assessment. Most people are having trouble tracking this because there's like 50 different, it's like back and forth, nonstop, trying to figure out what's going on. Here's where we stand. Pennsylvania state judge upholds halt to certification, finds likelihood mail-in ballot procedures violate PA Constitution. This is crazy. The Republicans pass an unconstitutional law. They now want to file a resolution to take back control to appoint their own electors, citing widespread voter irregularities. But they're being sued because they passed an unconstitutional law that made mail-in voting happen. And that actually, if they lose, let me start over. This is crazy. There's different Republicans here. They're not all the same thing. The state legislature, Republicans, passed an unconstitutional law. They're being sued now by other Republicans saying you can't do that. That's unconstitutional. Judge says, likely you're going to win on the merits. Yep, that's legit. Okay, that means the state legislature that passed the unconstitutional law can now cite the fact the law was unconstitutional and say, whoopsie, we made a big mistake, election over, we give the electoral votes to Donald Trump. Think about how broken that is. That's crazy, right? That's going to result in mass riots if that happens. I don't know what's going to happen yet, but the latest update is absolutely nuts. Check this out. A Pennsylvania state court judge has issued a preliminary injunction preventing Pennsylvania from taking any further steps to perfect its certification of the election, including but not limited to appointment of electors and transmission of necessary paperwork to the Electoral College, pending further court hearings and rulings. The ruling upholds an injunction from earlier in the week and is significant because of the findings made in the opinion released tonight. The case has been somewhat under the radar because it doesn't involve claims of fraud. It appears to be a pretty straight legal argument. This is not the federal court case that has received a lot of press attention and in which the Third Circuit Court of Appeals denied relief. The issue in this case is whether legislative expansion of absentee balloting to broad mail-in balloting violated the Pennsylvania Constitution. It's not clear what relief would be. The petitioners seek to preclude the Secretary of State from transmitting the certification or otherwise perfecting the Electoral College selections. Earlier in the week, Judge Patricia McCullough issued a temporary halt to the certification process, and that now is on appeal to the PA Supreme Court. The judge issued this opinion to extend the halt pending further hearings and to set forth the basis for the injunction, which could be relevant to the appeal. Quote, as this court's November 25th order of an emergency preliminary injunction has been appealed to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, this opinion shall set forth the basis for said order and shall also satisfy the requirements of Rule 1925 of the Pennsylvania Rules of Appellate Procedure. Here's the judge's description of the claim. In petition, petitioners allege that the Act of October 31st, 2019, number 77, Act 77, which added and amended various absentee and mail-in voting provisions to the Pennsylvania Election Code, is unconstitutional and void ab initio because it purportedly contravenes the requirements of the Pennsylvania Constitution. Petitioners allege that Article 7, Section 14 of the Pennsylvania Constitution provides two exclusive mechanisms by which a qualified elector may cast his or her vote in an election. One, by submitting his or her vote in propria persona at the polling place on election day, and two, by submitting an absentee ballot, but only if the qualified voter satisfies the conditions precedent to meet the requirements of one of the four limited exclusive circumstance under which absentee voting is authorized under the Pennsylvania Constitution. Petitioners allege the mail-in voting in the form implemented through Act 77 is an attempt by the legislature to fundamentally overhaul the Pennsylvania voting system and permit universal, no-excuse mail-in voting absent any constitutional authority. Petitioners argue that in order to amend the Constitution, mandatory procedural requirements must be strictly followed. Specifically, pursuant to Article 11, Section 1, a proposed constitutional amendment must be approved by a majority vote of the members of both the House and the Senate in 2 consecutive legislative sessions. Then the proposed amendment must be published for 3 months ahead of the next general election in 2 newspapers in each county. And finally, it must be submitted to the qualified electors as a ballot question in the next general election and approved by a majority of those voting on the amendment. According to petitioners, the legislature did not follow the necessary procedures for amending the Constitution before enacting Act 77, which created a new category of mail-in voting. Therefore, the mail-in ballot scheme under Act 77 is unconstitutional on its face and must be struck down. Petitioners seek, inter alia, a declaration and or injunction that prohibits respondents from certifying the general election results, which include mail-in ballots that are permitted on a statewide basis and are allegedly improper because Act 77 is unconstitutional. Long story short, they needed to publish this amendment in 2 newspapers in each county. That's crazy. I mean, wow, talk about strict procedures. But it had to appear on the general election. They can't change the rules before the election happens. People have to vote to change the rules. That's incredible. And right there, the judge says, it seems like they're going to win this one. This is huge. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. If this is something important to you, you need to check out Sean Parnell. I had him on the IRL podcast. Sean Parnell is one of the people who's running as a Republican for Congress in Pennsylvania. And this may have a huge impact on his race. What's interesting, let me read a little bit more. They say, the judge found, among other things, the plaintiffs were likely to prevail on their PA constitutional claims, and that the matter was not moot, even though PA had certified, quote, the results because there were more steps to be taken. The judge expressed grave concern as to what a remedy would be if she were to rule the mail-in balloting unconstitutional. So even if she ruled for the petitioners on the merits, it's not clear that would change the result. The judge concluded, for all the reasons above, the court respectfully submits that the emergency preliminary injunction was properly issued and should be upheld pending an expedited emergency evidentiary hearing. This is not a final ruling on the merits. It's meant to prevent Pennsylvania from taking more steps until the court finally rules. Given how the PA Supreme Court has ruled previously on election matters, expanding procedures beyond what even the legislature adopted, I don't see how this survives the PA Supreme Court, and I agree with that. From there, the next stop is the U.S. Supreme Court, where we know John Roberts and the 3 liberal justices will defer to the state Supreme Court. But the court is now 6-3. So a Roberts defection would not result in a 4-4 deadlock if the 5 conservative justices voted together. There we go. What's really amazing about this lawsuit is that the judge notes that Mike Kelly, who's running, is actually putting himself at risk because he won. So let me show you the list of names, and I'll break this down for you. The Honorable Mike Kelly, Sean Parnell, Thomas A. Frank, Nancy Kierzek, Derek McGee, Robin Sauter, Michael Kincaid, and Wanda Logan. Mike Kelly won. If this lawsuit actually stops or nullifies or voids the election, he doesn't win. And the judge says he's facing irreparable harm to his career by filing this motion. A lot of people are trying to claim that Sean Parnell, who is projected to lose but not yet certified, is only doing this because it would help him win. It will give him another chance. Sure, maybe, but it doesn't explain Mike Kelly, who's going to lose if he wins this lawsuit. Or maybe the lawsuit's relief, like they say, okay, this was unconstitutional. What we're going to do is we'll certify this time and we'll change it later. That would be shocking. That would be horrifying for what it means for this country. Based on what the judge has already said, we are facing a very serious crisis in this country. I mean, we have been for quite some time. Now, the left is hyper-focused on Trump losing these appeals. I have been saying over and over again that I believe Trump's lawsuits are buying time. It's a distraction. The left is jumping up and down, dancing and cheering. Trump's losing. Trump's losing. He's so dumb. And do you know what they're not doing? Donating to a legal defense to stop Trump. The ACLU put out a tweet saying we need to raise money to stop Trump's lawsuit, the one Trump is losing. Meanwhile, what's going on at the on the other side? We have this lawsuit, which so far has blocked the transmission of certification to the Electoral College, meaning certification ain't happened yet. Oh, they can say it happened, but they can't do anything right now with it. They can't appoint electors. It's been blocked. Now, legal insurrection says PA Supreme Court's previously ruled in favor of the legislation, so they're likely going to rule in favor of the Democrats on this one. But they will probably then move to the Supreme Court. The challenge is the Supreme Court, as they note, is going to say it's a state issue. So why should we take this up? But it was a 4-4 deadlock before. Now you got Amy Coney Barrett, and they're likely going to say the PA Supreme Court is violating the Constitution of its own state. And this election does not just affect the people of Pennsylvania. It affects the people of the entire country. So their Constitution and their rules must be upheld. More importantly, we have this House co-sponsorship memoranda. They say in the immediate future, we will be introducing the following resolution. A resolution declaring the results of statewide electoral contests in the 2020 general election to be in dispute. It's all so weird, isn't it? Okay, so let's try and slow this one down. The PA Supreme Court's probably going to block this injunction and try and get them to certify. But it'll be rushed to the Supreme Court, where I think they might actually win now because Amy Coney Barrett's on the Supreme Court. In which case, PA may just be blocked and Biden will lose 20 electoral votes. I do not believe there is grounds here to say Trump won. I don't. If they're arguing that the election was unconstitutional, then there's no electors to be cast. Sorry. Now, what the House of Representatives and the Senate want to do in a joint resolution, they want to reclaim the power to appoint electors. So maybe they appoint Trump. I don't think that's the appropriate political play if they want Trump to win. If they truly want Trump to win, that what they need to do is say, we can't send electors because it was unconstitutional. Then it goes to the Electoral College. And if Trump can get 2 other states to do something similar, maybe not, then we get a contingent election and Trump wins. But let me go back to that previous point I was making about the left. Right now, if you go on Reddit, you go on Twitter, they're laughing and gloating about how Trump is so dumb and he's losing, about how crazy crackpot conspiracies are popping up in these lawsuits. And that's what they're dancing and cheering about. Trump is getting his enemies to prematurely celebrate and dance. They're running in the wrong direction. Now, I'm not saying Trump is going to win. I still don't. There's so many hurdles here. I'll put it this way. Trump is like, you ever play the game where the person's running and you got to constantly jump and dodge things? That's basically what we got going on. Donald Trump is trying to do a super difficult video game speed run right now with just tens of thousands of obstacles in his path. And getting through is possible, in my opinion. It's very unlikely. But I'll tell you this. Each and every day when I'm like, oh, they're doing so bad, I look at this stuff and I'm like, wow. They're actually making, victories. They're getting victories in the areas they need to. And right now, there are 2 big victories for Trump. The fact that this exists, this memorandum that will be, they'll say they'll introduce it soon. Okay, we'll see if they do. The fact that the PA legislature is going to try to appoint electors. And the fact that this lawsuit might actually void Pennsylvania and has nothing to do with Donald Trump. The left doesn't get it. They're not paying attention. They don't realize what's happening all around them. I go on Reddit. And I see all these stories where it's like Trump loses appeal and they're all laughing in the comments saying, how many times has Trump lost now? Meanwhile, there's this stealth campaign, I say stealth in the sense that they're not paying attention. It's not from the Trump campaign and it's plowing ahead and might actually void Pennsylvania. And they're also ignoring the Electoral College play. We're starting to see the shift. For a long time, they were laughing and gloating saying Biden won, submit. First, they laugh at you. Or was it first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then you win, right? So first they were like, no, Joe Biden won. It's over. Stop. Joe Biden won. Now they're saying, now they're laughing. Trump's so dumb. Trump's just losing. He's over and over again. Well, now they're starting to get angry, actually. So it doesn't really fit that flow. We're starting to see people, like Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks screaming, Trump is trying to steal the election. It's going to happen. Things like that. And yeah, Trump is plowing ahead. So it may seem astronomical that Trump actually succeeds, but he's gaining ground in every place he needs to gain ground. That's the best way to put it. So while it may be astronomical that Trump wins, like a lottery ticket chance, he's actually succeeding. And so I'm sitting here, it's like, man, how do you describe it? It's like watching someone that you think is not going to lose. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of election night 2016, where everyone said Trump was going to lose, he'll never win. And then the New York Times meter slowly started flipping. It was like 99% Hillary, then like 60% Hillary, then 50-50, then 60% Trump. And everybody started sweating like, wait, what's really happening? But it's just being drawn out over a month or 2. We'll see how long it goes. Because you got to understand, January 6th is when Congress counts the electoral votes and objections can be raised. This is crazy. Even if all of the states certify, the Republicans in the House can raise 100, 200 plus individual objections on a bunch of different grounds and jam up the process and then force it to go to a contingent election. There's a lot of ways Trump can jam this up and actually take the win. But let me show you something. So I'm not going to read all of this. They say, the Pennsylvania election code requires all mail-in ballots to be received by 8:00 p.m., blah, blah, blah. There's one really important part. Check this out. They say, whereas in 2016, Pennsylvania's general election results were certified on December 12th, 2016. And on November 24th, 2020, the Secretary of the Commonwealth unilaterally and prematurely certified results of the November 3rd election regarding presidential electors despite ongoing litigation. And whereas the Pennsylvania House of Representatives has the duty to ensure that no citizen of the Commonwealth is disenfranchised, to insist that all elections are conducted according to law, and to satisfy the general public that every legal vote is counted accurately, therefore it is resolved. The Pennsylvania House of Representatives recognizes substantial irregularities and improprieties associated with mail-in balloting, pre-canvassing, and canvassing during November 3rd, disapproves of the infringement on the General Assembly's authority pursuant to the U.S. Constitution to regulate elections, and 3, disapproves of and disagrees with the Secretary of the Commonwealth's premature certification of the results of the November 3rd election regarding presidential electors, and declares the selection of presidential electors and other statewide electoral contest results in this Commonwealth is in dispute, and urges the Secretary of the Commonwealth and the governor to withdraw or vacate the certification of presidential electors and to delay certification of results in other statewide electoral contests voted on at the 2020 general election, and urges the U.S. Congress to declare the selection of presidential electors in this Commonwealth to be in dispute. They're going to be filing that soon. Here's what a lot of people are saying as it pertains to the Supreme Court. The left is saying it doesn't matter. The PA Supreme Court has already ruled, so that's done. The U.S. Constitution doesn't say that the Supreme Courts of states can overrule the legislature. It says the legislature allows for controls the regulation of elections. If they weren't allowed to, the federal government can say, we don't accept these results because they weren't done in accordance with the legislature as per the U.S. federal Constitution. Others have highlighted a court case, a Supreme Court ruling that said all laws that try to subvert the Constitution are void. I don't know if that's true or that precedent will stand, but basically the idea is the state legislatures appoint the electors no matter what laws they've passed. If they say, no, here's what we're doing, the U.S. government won't recognize electors appointed by someone other than the legislature. To put it simply, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. This is the argument that I'm seeing from a lot of Trump supporters. In 1938, the PA legislature gave the power to appoint electors to the Secretary of State. They're now saying that power is ours. The Secretary of State may say no. The governor may say no. We're not going to approve this. But what do you think happens when the federal government sees what's happening? They're going to say, according to our agreement, not yours, we only negotiate with the legislature. So you see how it works? Imagine it this way. I have a deal with a corn farm, and they say we only negotiate with you on sale price. I say to my buddy, no, you can deal with it, and they do for a long time. And then one day I say, no, I'm going to go talk to the corn guy, and I'm going to buy corn for myself. The guy at the corn factory is going to be like, look, I don't know who your boy is. He was just coming and picking the stuff up. If you tell me this is the deal, that's the deal. End of story. And you can cut out. So long story short, the Supreme Court might say, we don't care what agreements you had. We only take electors from the legislature, in which case I think they're likely to block it. I don't think they're likely to give it to Trump. I think they'll just say it's in dispute. End of story. And it is in dispute. End of story. And we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. This right here could already be enough. Imagine the governor appoints electors. Imagine if it goes to December 14th and they vote and they're like, nope, Biden won. But then on January 6th, when the Congress has a joint session to count the electoral votes, and then Republicans raise objections saying Pennsylvania has disputed these votes and that's not in question. They've straight up disputed it. We can't accept these. Trump just needs 2 more states to do the same thing. It's a long shot. It's difficult. It's possible. I don't care about Trump's lawsuits. These are silly. They've been silly the whole time. I've been looking at it like, what are they doing? This is the play. There's supposed to be hearings on fraud in 2 other major swing states. I think this is the play. And I think it probably always was. Fareed Zakaria of CNN pointed this out. MSNBC, a co-founder of MSNBC, pointed this out as well. And I've been warning about Trump's electoral college play for quite some time. Contingent election. The state legislatures block certification or the transmission of the electoral votes, and there we go. I can't tell you the odds, man. I can't predict that stuff, but I'm telling you, you might think you've won. And this is the story of the tortoise and the hare, man. The Democrats are sitting there dancing, celebrate good times and all that stuff, and they're not paying attention to Trump slowly pulling ahead, and they're just too busy partying. They're laughing as Rudy Giuliani dances around, and he's like, look at me, I'm Giuliani. And they're like, look how dumb Giuliani is. And then Trump's walking right past him. I'm not saying Trump is going to win. Far from it. I'm just saying he is pushing forward and he is gaining ground. Y'all best pay attention. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.